pursuant to notice issued on May 10, 2023. The committee is meeting to consider 14 legislative measures. I note the presence of a quorum. I'd like to recognize Ranking Member Paul for any opening statements he'd like to give. And first, I'd like to thank you, Ranking Member Paul, and your team for working together on this markup, especially on our Disaster Assistance Simplification Act. I do know that some members have to leave to attend other committee meetings, another busy day, so we'll proceed to the consideration of legislation right after a ranking member speaks. And I would just humbly ask members who wish to make any statements if they would do so afterwards. Just a note, we'll have a roll call vote for the final passage of each bill. For amendments, any member can object and certainly request a roll call vote on the amendment. We expect some amendments to be voice voted and others to receive requests for roll call votes. Ranking Member Paul, if you have opening comments.
As a result of the COVID pandemic, over 1 million Americans died, and some estimate 6 million, but up to 18 million people died worldwide. The FBI, the Department of Energy, 18-month investigation by the Help Committee, the Lancet Commission, all have concluded that the virus, in all likelihood, originated from the lab. I've been requesting records for the last 2 years from the Biden administration. I have asked 8 different Democrat chairmen to help with those records requests because the Biden administration objects to records requests unless they are signed by a chairman. And for the last 5 months, I've been working with the chairman of this committee to try to get records, and we still have had no records requests sent and no help from the majority party on this committee. So until there is any kind of production of records, we won't be supporting any unanimous consent passage of any legislation from this committee. We will also object to any nominees coming through the committee, and basically we'll be uncooperative with anything the majority wants to do unless the majority decides to cooperate in the request of records.
All right, Member Paul, we have been working with you on those letters and requests over that time. We've exchanged letters back and forth many times. It's certainly my intent to work with you on the information that you want to collect. We have letters to request documents that are sitting in your office right now that I'm prepared to sign. I know you wanted to have further discussion, and as we agreed, we're hoping to meet this week to make it happen. But no, my intent is sincere, and I think I've probably been more open than any other chair of any other committee to make sure that we get documents so that you can do the proper oversight that we have to do here as members of Congress.
There have been discussions back and forth, but I'll just give you a pictorial example of where the discussions are. With just one agency, the NIH, we've asked for 77 different questions and documents. The red are the examples of where your staff has said you will not give up documents. The green is the example of where you might help with documents. So as you can see, the vast majority of our records requests have been removed. And I'll leave you with this if your staff wants to look at it. But we don't feel like we are getting cooperation. We think we have 5 months of runaround and that we're not getting anywhere on the records request. And the thing is this isn't a partisan issue. This isn't even really, most information dates back to the Trump administration. So this isn't pointing fingers at Biden, saying Biden created the pandemic or anything like that. It's whether or not some science was not properly reviewed, whether some of that science was used in Wuhan, or whether an accident happened. That's all we want to know. And frankly, it's not partisan because it doesn't point towards Biden. We want to score no points for the Biden administration. Our only complaint with the Biden administration is they won't give it up. And realize that some of this stuff's already been given up. The Foreign Relations Committee has information that I want to see. They don't want to give it up. There are Republican members that have seen some of this information. I still haven't seen the information. So it's really a problem of everybody trying to hold secret stuff that is not classified, shouldn't be secret, and how do we have oversight if we can't see these records?
Again, Senator Paul, I want to work with you. We are working with you. We have made a lot of agreements between the two staff as to what we would request in this first round. As you know, in an investigation, there are going to be many rounds of requests for information. You collect information, you process that leads to other questions, and we'll continue to work. I just got the note because I wanted to confirm. We are meeting tomorrow at 11:30. You and I will sit down with our staff, and you have my commitment to work with you, but we have to do this in a process that works to actually get these documents, to make sure we can produce them, and to have a thoughtful investigation into this. And I'm prepared to work. I would just hope you'd be willing for us to work together and know that we're not trying to block documents. We're trying to do this in a systematic way that gets us the information that I believe would be helpful for us to answer very important questions that you're raising. I don't disagree with that, and we'll do that, and I'm looking forward to a productive meeting tomorrow at 11:30 a.m. where all of us can sit down together and at least start the process. There's not a one and done. When investigation's never a one and done, it takes steps, and we're going to be hopefully making some meaningful steps after tomorrow's meeting, and I look forward to that. I will now move to our votes. We'll proceed first off to the consideration of S 1528. This bill deals with disaster assistance simplification. You know, after a disaster, there are various types of federal assistance that may become available to disaster survivors through different government agencies. But currently, because of restrictions on information sharing, each agency requires a different detailed application process to receive assistance, which this can take weeks or months, and survivors don't have that kind of time. This bill quite simply directs FEMA to create a universal disaster application that authorizes the necessary information sharing authorities to simplify recovery efforts and reduce the burden on survivors after a disaster. Under this bill, all information sharing practices would have to meet applicable data security standards and best practices. So I'd like to thank Ranking Member Paul and Senator Langford for introducing this bill with me, and I hope folks will join me in supporting this bipartisan effort. If there's no further debate or amendment on the question before us is final passage of S 1528. The clerk will call the roll.
Senator Carper.
Aye by proxy.
Senator Hassan. Aye. Senator Sinema. Aye. Senator Rosen. Aye. Senator Padilla. Aye. Senator Ossoff. Aye. Senator Blumenthal. Aye. Senator Paul.
Aye.
Senator Johnson.
Aye by proxy.
Senator Langford.
Aye.
Senator Romney.
Aye.
Senator Scott.
Aye.
Senator Hawley.
Aye.
Senator Marshall.
Aye by proxy.
Senator Peters.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, on the vote of those present, the yeas are 12, the nays are 0. On the vote by proxy, and for the record only, the yeas are 3, the nays are 0. On this vote, the yeas are 12, the nays are 0, and the motion is agreed to.
We will now proceed to consideration of S 311. I would ask unanimous consent that the committee consider the Peters substitute amendment to S 311 as underlying bill. All those in favor will say aye. Aye. Opposed? Nay. The ayes have it. The substitute amendment is adopted. If there's no further debate or amendment, the question is on final passage of S 311 as amended. The clerk will call the roll. We need to do a quick roll.
Senator Carper.
Aye by proxy.
Senator Hassan. Aye. Senator Sinema. Aye. Senator Rosen. Aye. Senator Padilla. Aye. Senator Ossoff. Aye. Senator Blumenthal. Aye. Senator Paul.
Aye.
Senator Johnson.
Aye by proxy.
Senator Langford.
Aye.
Senator Romney. Aye. Senator Scott. Senator Hawley. Aye. Senator Marshall.
Aye by proxy.
Senator Peters.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, on the vote of those present, the yeas are 12, the nays are 0. On the vote by proxy, and for the record only, the yeas are 3, the nays are 0. On this vote, the yeas are 12, the nays are 0, and the motion is agreed to.
We'll now proceed to consideration of S 1549. Last week I introduced this bill along with Senator Collins, and I appreciate that Senator Langford has now joined on as a co-sponsor. The bill would increase the efficiency and accuracy of CBO cost estimates by granting them the same exemption to the Privacy Act afforded to GAO on both chambers of Congress. This bill will ensure the CBO can quickly access agencies' information and data necessary for their analysis while still requiring the CBO to maintain the same level of confidentiality for the data as the originating agency. Bottom line, this is better and faster access to data that the CBO will be able to use to report back to us in a timely fashion, and would urge my colleagues to vote in favor of the bill. If there's no further debate or amendment, the question is on final passage of S 1549. The clerk will call the roll.
Senator Carper.
Aye by proxy.
Senator Hassan. Aye. Senator Sinema. Aye. Senator Rosen. Aye. Senator Padilla. Aye. Senator Ossoff. Aye. Senator Blumenthal. Aye. Senator Paul.
Aye.
Senator Johnson.
Aye by proxy.
Senator Langford. Senator Romney. Senator Scott. Senator Hawley.
Aye by proxy.
Senator Marshall.
Aye by proxy.
Senator Peters.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, on the vote of those present, the yeas are 11, the nays are 0 on the vote by proxy, and for the record only, the yeas are 4, the nays are 0. On this vote, the yeas are 11, the nays are 0, and the motion is agreed to.
We'll now proceed to consideration of S 931. I would ask unanimous consent the committee consider the modified Peters substitute amendment to S 931 as the underlying bill. And all those in favor will say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Thank you. If there's no further debate or amendment to questions on final passage of S 931, I will say it does incorporate Paul Amendment number 1, and certainly appreciate Dr. Paul for his work on this particular bill. No further debate. The question, again, is on 931, final passage. The clerk will call the roll.
Senator Carper.
Aye by proxy.
Senator Hassan. Senator Sinema. Senator Rosen. Senator Padilla. Senator Ossoff. Senator Blumenthal. Senator Paul.
Aye.
Senator Johnson.
Aye by proxy.
Senator Langford. Senator Romney. Senator Scott. Senator Hawley.
Aye by proxy.
Senator Marshall.
Aye by proxy.
Senator Peters.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, on the vote of those present, the yeas are 11, the nays are 0 on the vote by proxy, and for the record only, the yeas are 4, the nays are 0. On this vote, the yeas are 11, the nays are 0, and the motion is agreed to.
We'll now proceed to consideration of S 1464. I ask unanimous consent the committee consider the modified Peters substitute amendment to S 1464 as the underlying bill. Basically, this is the Enhanced DHS Drug Seizures Act, which would grant additional authorities to DHS in supporting countering illicit drugs like fentanyl from entering the U.S. and ensure the DHS is working to improve its drug seizure data and its critical partnerships. Again, I appreciate the perspectives of Ranking Member Paul and Senator Scott offered on this legislation, which is why we've incorporated the Paul Amendment 2 and Scott Amendment 1 into the Peters substitute amendment as modified. The modified also incorporates technical changes from the agency. So all those in favor of...
Make a statement.
Senator Paul.
We appreciate the modifications, but we still believe the bill raises certain privacy and civil liberties concerns. It also appears to authorize additional DHS activity in foreign countries, which we feel is beyond the scope of what the agency should be doing, so I will oppose the bill.
Before we get to the bill, I need unanimous consent that they consider the modified Peters substitute, including the amendments I talked about. All those in favor will say aye. Aye. Opposed? Nay. Opposed will say nay. Ayes have it. The hearing no further amendments, we are now on final passage of S 1464. The clerk will call the roll.
Senator Carper.
Aye by proxy.
Senator Hassan. Senator Sinema. Senator Rosen. Senator Padilla. Senator Ossoff. Senator Blumenthal. Senator Paul.
No.
Senator Johnson.
Aye by proxy.
Senator Langford. Senator Romney. Senator Scott. Senator Hawley.
Aye by proxy.
Senator Marshall.
Aye by proxy.
Senator Peters. Senator Peters.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, on the vote of those present, the yeas are 10, the nays are 1. On the vote by proxy, and for the record only, the yeas are 4, the nays are 0. On this vote, the yeas are 10, the nays are 1, and the motion is agreed to.
We'll now proceed to consideration of S 1137. This is the DHS Suicide Prevention and Resilience for Law Enforcement Act, which aims to provide critical support for frontline law enforcement personnel at the Department of Homeland Security that work to keep us safe each day. This bicameral bipartisan legislation establishes the Law Enforcement Mental Health and Resilience Program within DHS to improve the development and delivery of programs offered by various DHS components. I appreciated the input provided by members of this committee, like Senator Langford, to improve this bill. The Peters substitute amendment as modified makes clear the resources available to law enforcement personnel are part of these mental health and wellness efforts. I would ask unanimous consent that the committee consider the modified Peters substitute amendment to S 1137. All in favor will say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The substitute is adopted. Senator Paul.
I appreciate the chairman working with us on the bill, but I still will oppose final passage. DHS already has an employee assistance program to help employees with mental conditions such as this. Our concern is that government doesn't have a very good track record with collecting records and keeping them private, and that there are privacy concerns with the DHS collecting and maintaining sensitive mental health records on its employees, so we will oppose the bill.
If there's no further debate, the questions on final passage of S 1137 is amended. The clerk will call the roll.
Senator Carper.
Aye.
Senator Hassan. Senator Sinema. Senator Rosen. Senator Padilla. Senator Ossoff. Senator Blumenthal. Senator Paul.
No.
Senator Johnson.
Aye by proxy.
Senator Langford. Senator Romney. Senator Scott. Senator Hawley.
Aye by proxy.
Senator Marshall.
Aye by proxy.
Senator Peters.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, on the vote of those present, the yeas are 10, the nays are 1. On the vote by proxy, and for the record, only the yeas are 4, the nays are 0. On this vote, the yeas are 10, the nays are 1, and the motion is agreed to.
We will now proceed to consideration of S 285. I would ask unanimous consent the committee consider the Peters substitute amendment to S 285 as the underlying bill. Hearing no objection, the substitute amendment to the underlying bill is adopted. Does any member wish to offer an amendment?
Now just speak on the bill.
Just speaking of the bill. Ranking Member Paul?
And this is, we're on 285.
285, yes.
The executive branch has operated these boards for over 60 years without any codification. This bill will formalize this and entrench the bureaucracy. All we need in this country is more bureaucracy. May sound like not much money, $15 million a year, but it's $15 million a year with no maximum included in that. It's just good money after bad, more bureaucracy, things we don't need, things that won't help, and so I will oppose the bill.
If there's no further debate or amendments, the questions on final passage of S 285 as amended, the clerk will call the roll.
Senator Carper.
Aye by proxy.
Senator Hassan. Senator Sinema. Senator Rosen. Senator Padilla. Senator Ossoff. Senator Blumenthal. Senator Paul.
No.
Senator Johnson.
Aye by proxy.
Senator Langford. Senator Romney. Senator Scott. Senator Hawley.
Aye by proxy.
Senator Marshall.
No by proxy.
Senator Peters.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, on the vote of those present, the yeas are 10, the nays are 1. On the vote by proxy, and for the record only, the yeas are 3, the nays are 1. On this vote, the yeas are 10, the nays are 1, and the motion is agreed to.
We will now proceed to consideration of S 885. I would ask unanimous consent that the committee consider the Rosen substitute amendment to S 885 as the underlying bill. Hearing no objection, the substitute amendment is adopted. Senator Rosen, would you like to make a comment on this bill? If there are no further debate or amendments, Senator Paul.
Recent litigation has exposed the extent to which CISA was colluding with big tech and other private organizations to censor private protected domestic speech related to elections, COVID-19, and other issues. Congress should not be expanding the authorities for an organization that is using their existing authorities to surveil and censor Americans. I will oppose the bill.
If there's no further debate, Senator Rosen.
I will say something, thank you. I'd just like to say, as we've heard in this committee time and time again, our nation does face dual challenge of unprecedented cyber attacks, while at the same time federal agencies experience a consistent shortage of cyber talent. To address this national security risk, my bipartisan Civilian Cyber Reserve Act with Senator Blackburn would equip CISA with the temporary cyber personnel needed to respond to significant cyber incidences, keep our nation safe at time of greatest need. This legislation passed HISGAC unanimously last Congress and passed the full Senate last year by unanimous consent. Every member of this committee who served on the committee last Congress has already voted for this bipartisan legislation, so I look forward to everyone supporting it again. Thank you.
If there's no further debate or amendment, the questions on final passage of S. 885 is amended. The clerk will call the roll.
Senator Carper.
Aye by proxy.
Senator Hassan. Senator Sinema. Senator Rosen. Senator Padilla. Senator Ossoff. Senator Blumenthal. Senator Paul.
No.
Senator Johnson.
Aye by proxy.
Senator Langford. Senator Romney. Senator Scott. Senator Hawley.
Aye by proxy.
Senator Marshall.
Aye by proxy.
Senator Peters.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, on the vote of those present, the yeas are 10, the nays are 1. On the vote by proxy and for the record only, the yeas are 4, the nays are 0. On this vote, the yeas are 10, the nays are 1, and the motion is agreed to.
We'll now proceed to consideration of S. 1425. I ask unanimous consent the committee consider the Peters substitute amendment to S. 1425 as underlying bill. Hearing no objection, the substitute amendment is adopted. Does any member wish to offer an amendment? Senator Paul, or Ranking Member Paul?
I just wish to speak in opposition. If someone has an amendment, they could go ahead.
Any other person wish to offer an amendment? Seeing none, Ranking Member Paul, you may make your comments.
CISA has a great deal of problems. CISA, and the Department of Homeland Security in general was set up after 9/11 and sort of the fear and anger after the attacks. And what ended up happening is we allowed too much power to gravitate to these agencies, and CISA has an enormous amount of agencies. So I think at this point we should be circumscribing CISA's powers, not expanding them.
There's no further debate or amendment. The questions on final passage of S. 1425 is amended. The clerk will call the roll.
Senator Carper.
Aye by proxy.
Senator Hassan. Senator Sinema. Senator Rosen. Senator Padilla. Senator Ossoff. Senator Blumenthal. Senator Paul.
No.
Senator Johnson.
Aye by proxy.
Senator Langford. Senator Romney. Senator Scott. Senator Hawley.
Aye by proxy.
Senator Marshall.
Aye by proxy.
Senator Peters.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, on the vote of those present, the yeas are 10, the nays are 1. On the vote by proxy and for the record only, the yeas are 4, the nays are 0. On this vote, the yeas are 10, the nays are 1, and the motion is agreed to.
We will now proceed to consideration of S. 1564. I ask unanimous consent the committee consider the modified Peters substitute amendment to S. 1564. Hearing no objection, the substitute amendment is adopted. Prior to vote, I'd like to thank Ranking Member Paul and Senators Johnson and Scott for working with me on this bill and appreciate the input they have provided. Does any member wish to offer an amendment? Senator Paul.
I thought we had a pretty good discussion to begin with on artificial intelligence, and I think one of the conclusions that I come away with is that it isn't so much the fear of the technology, but the fear that the technology will be used to abrogate our rights and to infringe upon the Bill of Rights. Important, our founding fathers thought the most important among them was the First Amendment, and the idea that government would censor or limit speech or limit content is something that goes against every fiber of those who support the First Amendment. So I would recommend that we add a GAO report on any censorship activities by the Department of Homeland Security, and I think it would be good to have an independent voice look at the activities of DHS, what they've been doing, looking at content, interacting with Twitter, interacting with Facebook, and really limitations on the speech of the American public in these platforms. So I think it would be a good idea to enlist the GAO to have an independent report on this. So I'd ask for a recorded vote on my amendment. It's number 3.
So Paul, 3, Senator or Ranking Member Paul, I'm aware, and I think we all are aware of instances like Portland in which the DHS carried out inappropriate surveillance of Americans. And we certainly have an opportunity going forward to work together to ensure that privacy, civil rights, and civil liberties are definitely baked into DHS work, and I look forward to working with you on legislation to deal with that. However, this bill is just not the right place for this request. It is also critical that we scope the request appropriately to ensure it provides useful analysis and recommendations. And I'm certainly happy to continue to work with Ranking Member Paul to reach an agreement on a GAO request and in general to work together on these issues. However, I must oppose this amendment at this time and urge my colleagues to do the same so we can be focused on the intent of this particular bill. We'll now proceed to consideration of the Paul amendment. The clerk will call the roll.
Senator Carper.
No by proxy.
Senator Hassan. Senator Sinema. Senator Rosen, Senator Padilla, Senator Ossoff, Senator Blumenthal, Senator Paul,
Aye.
Senator Johnson,
Aye by proxy.
Senator Langford, Senator Romney, Senator Scott, Senator Hawley,
Aye by proxy.
Senator Marshall,
Aye by proxy.
Senator Peters.
No.
Mr. Chairman, on the vote of those present, the yeas are 3, the nays are 8. On the vote by proxy, the yeas are 3, the nays are 1. On this vote, the yeas are 6, the nays are 9, and the amendment is not agreed to.
If there's no further debate or amendment, the question is on final passage of S 1564 as amended. The clerk will call the roll.
Senator Carper,
Aye by proxy.
Senator Hassan, Senator Sinema, Senator Rosen, Senator Padilla, Senator Ossoff, Senator Blumenthal, Senator Paul,
No.
Senator Johnson,
No by proxy.
Senator Langford, Senator Romney, Senator Scott,
No by proxy.
Senator Hawley,
No by proxy.
Senator Marshall,
Aye by proxy.
Senator Peters.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, on the vote of those present, the yeas are 9, the nays are 1. On the vote by proxy, and for the record only, the yeas are 2, the nays are 3. On this vote, the yeas are 9, the nays are 1, and the motion is agreed to.
We will now proceed to consideration of S 1443. Does any member wish to offer an amendment?
No.
You don't.
No.
If there's no further debate or amendment, the question is on final passage of S 1443. The clerk will call the roll.
Senator Carper,
Aye by proxy.
Senator Hassan, Senator Sinema, Senator Rosen, Senator Padilla, Senator Ossoff, Senator Blumenthal, Senator Paul,
No.
Senator Johnson,
Aye by proxy.
Senator Langford, Senator Romney, Senator Scott,
Aye by proxy.
Senator Hawley,
Aye by proxy.
Senator Marshall,
Aye by proxy.
Senator Peters.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, on the vote of those present, the yeas are 9, the nays are 1. On the vote by proxy, and for the record only, the yeas are 5, the nays are 0. In this vote, the yeas are 9, the nays are 1, and the motion is agreed to.
We'll now proceed to consideration of S 1510. I'm pleased to join Senator Brown on the GAO Inspector General Parity Act, which would grant the GAO-IG the independence protections already afforded to other federal and legislative branches, branch IGs. I would urge my colleagues to support. If there's no further debate, the question is on final passage of S 1510. The clerk will call the roll.
Senator Carper,
Aye by proxy.
Senator Hassan, Senator Sinema, Senator Rosen, Senator Padilla, Senator Ossoff, Senator Blumenthal, Senator Paul,
No.
Senator Johnson,
Aye by proxy.
Senator Langford, Senator Romney, Senator Scott,
Aye by proxy.
Senator Hawley,
Aye by proxy.
Senator Marshall,
Aye by proxy.
Senator Peters.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, on the vote of those present, the yeas are 9, the nays are 1. On the vote by proxy, and for the record only, the yeas are 5, the nays are 0. On this vote, the yeas are 9, the nays are 1, and the motion is agreed to.
We will now proceed to consideration of S 473. Does any member wish to offer an amendment? If no further debate or amendment, the question is on final passage of S 473. The clerk will call the roll.
Senator Carper,
Aye by proxy.
Senator Hassan, Senator Sinema, Senator Rosen, Senator Padilla, Senator Ossoff, Senator Blumenthal, Senator Paul,
No.
Senator Johnson,
Aye by proxy.
Senator Langford, Senator Romney, Senator Scott,
Aye by proxy.
Senator Hawley,
Aye by proxy.
Senator Marshall,
Aye by proxy.
Senator Peters.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, on the vote of those present, the yeas are 9, the nays are 1. On the vote by proxy, and for the record, only the yeas are 5, the nays are 0. On this vote, the yeas are 9, the nays are 1, and the motion is agreed to.
That concludes the voting, but does any member wish to be recognized for any statements prior to the business meeting adjourning? Senator Romney.
Mr. Chairman, I understand in the exchange you had with Ranking Member Paul that there's certain information he's requesting, non-classified, and you're not willing to agree with that. Can you give a reason as to why any unclassified information we wouldn't be willing to receive from the administration? I don't know why you would not be willing to exceed his request for that information. I have a hard time imagining a circumstance where we'd say non-classified information a committee member wants to receive from a department we're not willing to give to him or her. And so just an explanation as to why there's a long list of things that you refuse to provide support to get that information. I'm just curious as to why that would be the case. I've served in an executive position in another state, and I don't recall ever refusing to provide information that was requested that was not of a classified or confidential nature.
Well, thank you, Senator Romney. We're working with Senator Paul to try to be as expansive as possible. There's some information that's not public, and we would want to perhaps ask other questions before we ask for that material. Also, clearly, I want to make sure we're asking for material that I can actually get. As you know, it's sometimes difficult regardless of who the president is. We've had this problem over and over again to get information. So we believe that there's a step-by-step process. We get some information. We make sure we get those documents that will then lead to us getting other documents in a systematic way. So I am not in any way trying to stonewall the ranking member or trying to prevent him from getting the information, but I also have to put my name on the letter, so I want to make sure we're doing it in a systematic and an appropriate way. Sometimes there is sensitive. It may not be classified, but it's sensitive, particularly if it perhaps a particular individual. We have been advised by the GAO to be very careful about that because of threats that can come to people if their name appears on some of those. It doesn't mean we wouldn't ask for that information, but we may have to ask for that in a more confidential way to protect the safety of individuals. So there are a number of reasons for it. But as you know, Senator Romney, I'm very open to work with members to try to find common ground, and we're doing that. I think we are at the point right now where we have letters that I'm prepared to sign and send off, which will get an awful lot of information that we'll have to sift through. It'll be a substantial amount of information, and then we'll continue the investigation going forward. I think the questions that Senator Paul raised are questions that need to be answered, and I'm going to work with him to try to get there in a systematic, orderly way that also is cognizant that there are some non-public information that could be sensitive, even if it is not classified, and we have to handle that with appropriate degree of diligence.
Yeah, I would just hope that we'd be able to move on that basis as quickly as possible, provide as much information as possible, where there's sensitivity, perhaps providing it in a quiet setting, a private setting, but the absence of movement on this creates an impression of somehow hiding something from the American people or from the world at large. And I think there's legitimate purpose to ask for this information. And it creates conspiracy theories when one says, no, we're not going to give you this, we're not going to give you this. It gives this impression that, oh, there must be some very bad things going on. So I would hope that we could move quickly on that front and encourage the chairman to do so to the extent humanly possible. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate those comments, and we will make every effort to do exactly what you have asked. And I think it's appropriate for us to do that for any member of the committee as well, that we stand with you to make sure we get the information to do our congressional oversight role. And it's hard to do congressional oversight if you don't actually get documents. And it's been a persistent problem, regardless of who's in the White House and what letter is after their name. And it's time for us to step up. So I agree with you. Thank you. Any other comments? Hearing none, this business meeting is now adjourned.